How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
What is your name and what is your origin?
My name is Tom Bennett. I was born in New Zealand, lived there for the first 5 years of my life, and then my parents moved to England, where I grew up, went to boarding school. And then I moved around. As an adult, I lived in Spain, I've lived here, in Texas.
Do you want both names?
Sure.
Okay. I'm Dan Call. I'm originally from Cleveland.
All right.
I've been out here 10 years.
Wow, incredible.
Origin. You mean like where I'm from?
Yes, very strong.
Dave. My name is David Allen Cosby, but I go by Dave. And I am originally from Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I grew up. And my adult life was mostly in Virginia until I came here, California.
Nice. So since you are from New Zealand and from New England.
No, from Old England. New England is someone else.
Since you are from those places.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with how your earliest start to music and what got you into music.
Okay. So my earliest memories of music are actually not, they start as my earliest memories of music, but they carried on throughout my early childhood, I suppose you could say. And that was my father. We would, myself and my two brothers would be thrown into the bath, and he would sit there and strum a guitar and sing Simon and Garfunkel songs, John Denver songs on his 12-string Yamaha guitar. I guess in a way to maybe calm us down. I don't know if it did calm us down. I do know that I've tried that with my daughter and it doesn't seem to work. Maybe it's because I can't sing. But so that was it. I just grew up, and to this day, I have to say, if I'm sitting in the bath, I expect to hear music.
And you still have that guitar from what you've shown me on.
My father does.
Yeah,
yes. My father still has that guitar. It's had the neck snapped a couple of times, and it's a killer to keep in tune. Yes, that photo I showed you of it is still it, and he bought that. I want to say he bought that the year I was born. I think it's the same. I think he's told me it's the same age as me. I do know that when he dies, it's in his will for me.
Yeah.
I think I've actually got a much better 12-string now, 12-string guitar, but there's some sentimental value for obvious reasons.
Well, my parents were musicians as well. Not professional, but they played a lot. My dad particularly. They sang on the radio and on TV with local preachers and things like that. So music was I was always around it, kind of stuff. And as I grew up, I just had a knack for it. I had a talent for it, I suppose, and no one else in my family.
Having it available. Like my dad was not a musician but loved music, and so just having lots of records and lots of music around. And I know my first two records were definitely either ABC and I Want You Back and Hey Jude by the Beatles, because they had these little things called 45. And I used to listen to it all the time. And then my first organized music was in fourth grade, where they were like, "Hey, want to join elementary school band?" And I was like, "I don't know." And my dad was like, "Yeah, you want to play saxophone?" I'm like, "Okay, I want to play saxophone." So it was that easy, and then hooked, just totally hooked.
And how has your music personally impacted America? How would you say that you, being from New Zealand, what is your impact on America? And and I know you're a teacher of philosophy and English, but also you've been through the IB program as well.
I think when we spoke about it before, I spoke about identity, and that so much music is related to your identity, and I'm biased towards New Zealand music because it's from New Zealand, and that seems like a very silly reason to favour certain songs over other songs just because of where they're from. But I think we all do that to a certain extent, particularly when we're away from our own country. We look for things to connect us back to it, even if we're very happy being in America. I wear these things because they're from New Zealand. So when I hear New Zealand music, or if I see a CD by a New Zealand band like the Chills or the Clean or the long lost and sadly underappreciated Mutton Birds, man, they were a great band. I pick these things up because they're from New Zealand.
Right.
And in terms of how I tell you, in terms of how my music has impacted on America, obviously it's very narrow, but I've performed a few shows in Houston in the 15 years I was in Houston. My band performed various shows where we would play quite English stuff, mainly because the singer's a big fan of that sort of music. Quite English bands like Blur and all these kind of Britpop bands. Van Morrison, bands that are not unknown here, but we'd perform these songs in American ways, like with mandolins and banjos.
Right.
So we used to do Faith. The George Michael song Faith.
I haven't heard of it personally.
Okay. Which was a big hit in 1987-ish.
All right.
But I did that on a banjo.
Wow. Is it normally a banjo song?
No, it's not. It's like a pop song.
Oh,
Keyboards. Actually, it's got a guitar in it, but no, it's not. So it's taking all these kind of more English pop and rock songs and casting them in more of an American way. So it's like joining those two things.
'Cause I gotta have faith. I gotta have faith. Because I got to have faith. I got to have faith, the faith, the faith.
So, has there been any piece that you've written personally as a musician that really got to you? It's like, wow, this really speaks to my culture and my heritage. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, that I think really directly speaks to that. One is a piece. It's called X King because it's kind of like dedicated to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And do you have that piece still?
I can share it with you.
Cool.
It's kind of like it's kind of like contemporary jazz, but there's a dark section and then there's a light section, and so it was kind of like when I was at that point. Like we've learned a lot more about Malcolm X, but at the point, Malcolm was the angry guy and Malcolm was the peace guy. Martin. Yeah.
Martin. No. Yeah. Totally. So, being a gay man in 1970s, right? 1980s.
Yeah.
How has that music negatively impacted you from America, or has it positively impacted you? How did it impact you?
To be honest with you, I can't think of anything where my sexuality has pretty much anything to do with the music. And so, when I think about that, like I always saw myself kind of, as a wiener, right? Like, I can't, I'm so scared. But then I think, geez, I was out by the time I was 17 to people, right? And I mean, I didn't drive through town with a rainbow flag, and I didn't wear my heels and carry a clutch to the store, but the 70s were a big open kind of time for things. Certainly then, and I lived through AIDS, which was devastating.
Right.
I lost a lot of friends, and the quilt and names and but that brought it into the forefront.
Right.
It made people pay attention, and it also made people realize that this was not just a gay thing. I guess the thing is, in terms of advice, it's just, you have to be, if you really want to be happy, you have to be who you are, and find the people that support you, and be in that circle, right? And
Yeah.
there's always going to be it doesn't have anything, frankly, at the end of the day, to do with whatever anybody's sexuality is, right? Like there's people. I've got plenty of straight friends who don't get along with their family. They don't, right? Like
Right.
So you build your own family. Hopefully that contains your biological family,
Right.
but you know, if it doesn't, then it doesn't, or whatever. So I guess be who you are, and be proud of who you are, and I would do a really vulgar phrase if it weren't high school and things, but yeah, don't be intimidated by people who don't know any better.
Yeah. And then I guess my final question, that's kind of a surprise question, is like, the impact of music is so expansive, clearly, from this interview, and I would what would be your takeaway and your advice for future generations, musicians out there, to make sure they keep their heritage and their culture with them while creating music?
If you're a musician, I think the best way to do that is to play those songs. You're making me wish now that I perform more New Zealand songs. And maybe that's something I need to do. It happens all the time. I listen to some great bands from New Zealand and say, "Oh, I'd love to perform that," or whatever. But I think that's the way to do it, isn't it? It's to play the songs.
First, embrace your parents or your grandparents and learn about the music of your culture, whatever it is. I think something incredible to be gained from every culture. I love classical music, but
Right.
and so I just think I think it's so important. Whatever your culture is to honor it and respect it. Respect the elders, and check out the elders, because the elders of every music culture tend to be really, really deep thinkers, and they know the music, and they have a deep understanding that can really. I know the old jazz guys that I got to hang out with were just being around them, not even like necessarily talking music, but just being around them and seeing how the respect and the love that they have. So I think like whatever music you're into, whatever your culture is, it's the same way. That's the beauty of it. And so I think learning from your family and learning from the elders in your culture is so important. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Tom. Well, thank you very much for your time. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
All
Dave.
right. Thank you, Tristan. It was awesome.